What up, Jean?
Can you hear me?
I can.
It's echoing.
Do you have the courtroom and your thing on? One of them maybe should be muted.
It's actually Addie's computer that's echoing. She I don't know where her headset is. So that's the problem. Her headset's usually in there and it stops the echo.
I was in Boston. What part of Boston are you from?
I'm from Dorchester originally.
Okay, that's around where I was. I was in Upham's Corner.
Oh, yep. You was in my neck of the woods. You did the marathon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that fixed it. Wonderful.
Stayed off
Yeah,
Columbia Road with my cousin.
yeah, I think I gave you a shout out on social media. You have pretty good timing too. Okay, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll start with Ronald Rawson. On the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Ronald Rawson. Council appearance.
Good morning, Brian Jackson, on behalf of Mr. Rawson, who is in custody, ready for his arraignment.
Okay, Mr. Rawson, today is the date and the time set for an arraignment. I have here a felony complaint. It alleges that on or about April 29, 2023, at the area of 1821 West Jolly, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you did allegedly, contrary to law, commit the act in count 1 of assault with intent to do great bodily harm less than murder or by strangulation. It alleges that you did make an assault upon a Michelle Lyons by strangulation or suffocation, contrary to Michigan Compiled Law 750.84, and that this is a felony, maximum penalty 10 years in prison and or $5,000 in fines. Your DNA is to be taken upon arrest, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. There's a count 2 of domestic violence. That alleges that you did make an assault and assault and battery upon Michelle Lyons, an individual with whom you had a dating relationship, contrary to Michigan Compiled Law 750.812. Restitution may be ordered as this offense may have resulted in damage to another individual's property or physical injury or death to another individual. This is a misdemeanor, sir. The maximum penalty is 93 days in jail and or $500 in fines, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under MCL 750.506A if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. Do you understand the charges and the maximum penalty in each charge?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you have the right to be represented by counsel, sir, and if you cannot afford to hire your own attorney, you can make a request to have the public defender's office represent you at the expense of the public. Do you understand your right to counsel?
Yes, ma'am.
Counsel is making a request for our public defense to
He is.
represent him.
He is.
Okay, we'll note here that you're making request for court-appointed counsel here on the file. Mr. Rawson, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, anything that you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty. You can plead not guilty or you can stand mute. You have the right in this matter to proceed to a preliminary examination because count 1 is a felony. You have the right to have your preliminary examination within 21 days of your arraignment date, that's today, unless the court finds good cause to go beyond that timeline or you waive the timeline. Do you understand your rights so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, at the time of your preliminary examination, you have the right to have the prosecution meet their burden, which is to establish that they have sufficient probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause sufficient to charge you with the crime. If this matter proceeds beyond a preliminary examination, you have the right to have a trial and you have the right to jury trial. At the time of trial, you enjoy the presumption of innocence. So you have the right to be considered innocent, and you're innocent until the prosecution can prove you guilty. You have the right to have them prove each element of the charges being brought against you. You have to prove each element beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
You have the right to remain silent at trial and not have silence be used against you. You have the right to see, hear, or question any other witnesses the prosecution intends to call. You have the right to call your own witnesses or present evidence at trial that you believe would further a defense to these charges. Do you have any questions about those rights?
No, ma'am.
Okay. You have the right to be considered for pretrial release from custody. We'll address your bond in a moment. Let's see. For the purposes of his arraignment, is he pleading not guilty, Mr. Jackson?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, the court will enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. You're currently scheduled, sir, for a probable cause conference before Judge Cynthia Ward. It's going to be May 12, 2023 at 8:30 in the morning. That's via Zoom, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
But you obviously have the option to appear in person, but that one you can appear via Zoom. Your preliminary examination is currently scheduled in person before Judge Cynthia Ward, May 19th at 8:30 in the morning, okay? Did you get a copy of your notice to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you have any questions at this time?
No, ma'am.
Okay, you're currently on probation, parole, or on bond on any other matter? Okay, and it notes here that you are homeless at this time?
No, that is my residence at 821.
Okay, and does the alleged victim live at that address?
No, the alleged victim should live down the street at her boyfriend's house. She was not supposed to be at my residence, ma'am, at all.
Okay. So your address is the one on Jolly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a phone number?
Yeah, 864-837-1542 or 269-569-2662.
Okay. So you can address the bond. Mr. Jackson, you can address the bond.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Rawson has lived in mid-Michigan, Lansing area for over 17 years. He's self-employed in the construction business where he works pretty much every day in his own company. He reports having a very old and minimal criminal history. I believe possibly the last things are over 10 years ago, and he has always appeared for court for all of those matters. I advised him that he will likely have a no contact order against the complaining witness here. He understands that and is okay with that and agrees and will abide by that. And given his lack of significant criminal history that he represents, his connections to the community, his job is also in Lansing area, we would ask for a PR bond. Thank you.
If I reviewed your prior criminal history, I don't see any recent convictions.
No, ma'am. They've been dismissed.
Now grant the request for personal recognizance bond. Bond will be set in the amount of 2,500 personal recognizance with the following conditions. You're not to have contact directly or indirectly with the alleged victim in this matter. That's Ms. Lyons.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Michelle Lyons. You're not to be within 1,500 feet. Well, she lives on the same street with you, is that correct?
Yeah, it's almost a half mile away though.
Okay. You're not to be within 1,500 feet of Michelle Lyons. That's not a problem, correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay. While out on bond, you're not to use, purchase, or possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon. You're not to travel outside the state without prior approval of the court. You're not to use alcohol or drugs without a valid prescription. You need to report to pretrial services within 48 hours of your release, okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Do you have any questions about your bond conditions at this time?
No, ma'am.
Any additional matters for the record on this file, counsel?
Just the case number if you have it, Your Honor.
I do not have a case number at this time.
And Mr. Rawson, is it 1821 or 821
1821.
West Jolly Road? That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rawson. You're all set.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson.
We're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Craig Allen Short. Counsel appearance.
Hello, Your Honor.
Good morning, Your Honor. Brian Jackson on behalf of Mr. Short, who is in custody for his arraignment today.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Today is the date, time scheduled for an arraignment. I have a misdemeanor complaint here that alleges that on or about April 28, 2023, at the area of 1028 Clark, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you did allegedly, contrary to law, commit the act in count 1 of domestic violence. The allegation is that you made an assault or assault and battery upon a Sarah Nicobuayo, an individual with whom you had a dating relationship, and that this was done contrary to Michigan compiled law 750.812. Restitution may be ordered as this offense may have resulted in damage to another individual's property or physical injury or death to another individual. This is a misdemeanor and the maximum penalty is 93 days in jail and or $500 in fines, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. Do you understand the charge, sir, and the maximum penalty?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you have the right to be represented by counsel. Mr. Jackson from the Public Defender's Office is representing you for the purposes of your arraignment only. You have the right to have an attorney with you throughout the pendency of this prosecution to represent you, and if you're questioned by law enforcement. If you cannot afford to hire an attorney, you can make a request to have the Public Defender's Office represent you at the expense of the public. Do you understand that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is he making a request, Mr. Jackson?
He is.
Okay, Mr. Clark, I'm sorry, Mr. Allen, you have the, Mr. Short, Craig Allen Short, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Short, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty. You can plead not guilty, or you can stand mute and proceed to trial. You have the right to a jury trial in this matter. At the time of trial, you have the right to the presumption of innocence. So you're innocent, sir, until the prosecution can prove you guilty. You have the right to have the prosecution prove you guilty by proving each element of the charge being brought against you beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. You have the right to confront any witnesses and see and hear them in the courtroom, and you have the right to cross-examine them. You have the right to call your own witnesses or present evidence at trial that you believe would further defense to the charge. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any questions about your rights so far?
No, I do not, ma'am.
Okay, you have the right to be considered for pretrial release from custody. We'll address your bond in just a moment. Let's see, I have an address for you on Clark Street. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am, 1028.
Okay, and is that the alleged victim's address?
Pardon?
Does the alleged victim live there?
No, they do not.
Are you currently employed?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you employed?
Through MRD Apartments at O'Reilly House in East Lansing, Michigan.
Okay. What's your phone number, sir?
Honestly, I don't know. It's on my phone.
You're currently
I've
scheduled
worked there.
for, I'm sorry, sir?
I've worked there for just over a year, ma'am. They give me a personal cell phone as well. I'm in 24-hour maintenance.
Okay.
Mr.
You're-
Short, she asked for your number.
Oh, my phone number? I'm sorry,
Correct.
517-599-6888.
Okay, very good. You're scheduled for a pretrial conference before Judge Cynthia Ward on May 15th at 9:30. You can't appear via Zoom or in person for that, okay?
Okay,
Did you get a notice to appear in her Zoom instructions?
yes.
Okay, very good. Are you currently on probation, parole, or out on bond on any other matter?
No, ma'am, I'm not.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, you can address the bond.
Thank you. Mr. Short represents that he is born and raised in Mason and lived between Mason and Lansing his entire life. His work is in East Lansing. His family is in the area, and this is his home. He is fully employed and represents having a prior conviction back in 2016 for a non-violent offense. And he represents that he has appeared at court for all of his prior court dates. I advised him about the no contact order that the court is likely to impose, and Mr. Short understands that and agrees and will abide by that. There is one little discrepancy, being that this alleged incident happened recently at his house, where last he knew the complaining witness was at, because that's where he was arrested and that's where he saw her at. He does not know if she walked out the door and went to her house yet, but Mr. Short did say that he lives there. She has her own place. And should she be squatting in his house for some reason, he would need a police escort to get his property for one time, I guess, until she leaves and goes back home, if she has not already left. But for those reasons mentioned, would ask for a PR bond. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Short, so she's not on the lease at that address on Clark?
No, ma'am, she's not.
Okay, and so there's no reasonable explanation for her to be holding over that property, is what you're stating?
There's no, she doesn't live there. She has her own place, her own property, her own apartment. She's just a
Okay.
girlfriend that's been staying there, and this is where the assault took place, was where I got beat up, was in my home.
Okay, so I would state that if you return to the property, I'm not gonna say that you can't stay there if she has her own place. If you return to the property and she, for some reason, is still there, you would need to contact law enforcement so that she can be removed for trespassing, okay?
They will remove her for trespassing then?
As long as she's not, she can't state that she should lawfully be there. If she has her own place, then she shouldn't be at your place, okay?
Well, I'm only questioning because I got arrested for offenses that were on my own property.
Mr. Short, you don't have, just listen to the judge, and if you agree, say okay, because that's all we can do today.
Okay,
You were arrested for an allegation of domestic violence at your property, but that doesn't mean that someone can unlawfully live at your property. So if what you're saying is true and she doesn't live there, she has her own place and she's still there, then you should call the police and have the person removed for trespassing, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So at this time, bond will be set in the amount of $500 personal recognizance. While out on bond, you have the following conditions. You're not to have communication directly, indirectly, or through third party with the alleged victim, Sarah Nkuwayo, I believe is how it's pronounced. Okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're not to be within 1,500 feet of wherever she is. Is that a problem?
No, it's not a problem at all, ma'am.
Okay, very good. You need to make sure you appear to all of your future court dates. You're not to travel outside the state without prior approval of the court. You're not to possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon. You're not to use, purchase, or possess alcohol or drugs without a valid prescription. You're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior while out on bond. Do you have any questions about your bond conditions?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Thank you. Any additional matters for the record? We don't have any of the file numbers on these. We don't get them until Monday. Okay,
Nothing further.
you're all set, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, this one, I do have a file number because it was a summons on it. Let's see. We're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus George Louis Spataro. This is file number 23-01248FY. Council appearance.
Good morning, Brian Jackson on behalf of Mr. Spataro, who is present in custody for his arraignment.
Mr. Spataro, today is the date set for arraignment. I do have a felony complaint here. The allegations are that on or about March 27, 2023 at 2905 South Washington, apartment 1, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you allegedly committed the act of assault with intent to do great bodily harm, less than murder, or by strangulation. There's an allegation that you made an assault upon Alinda Marie by strangulation or suffocation, contrary to MCL 750.84. So that's a felony, and the maximum penalty is 10 years and or $5,000 in fines. Your DNA is to be taken upon arrest, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. You understand the charge there and the maximum penalty, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you have the right to be represented by counsel. Mr. Jackson is representing you for the purposes of your arraignment only, but you have the right to have an attorney with you to represent you throughout the pendency of this prosecution, and you have the right to have an attorney represent you if you're questioned by law enforcement. If you cannot afford to hire an attorney, you can make a request to have the public defender's office represent you at the expense of the public. Do you understand that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is he making a request for public defense counsel to represent him?
He is.
You have the right, Mr. Spataro, to remain silent. Anything you say and anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty, plead not guilty, or stand mute. You have the right in this matter to have a preliminary examination within 21 days of your arraignment because you're being charged with a felony. At the time of your preliminary examination, you have the right to have the prosecution meet their burden, which is to establish that they have sufficient probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause sufficient to charge you with the crime. Do you understand those rights, sir? Can you speak again? It didn't pick it up on the volume.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. If this matter proceeds beyond a preliminary examination, you have the right to have a trial. You have the right to have a jury trial. At the time of trial, you enjoy the presumption of innocence, sir. So you're innocent until proven guilty. You have the right to have the prosecution bring sufficient evidence at trial to prove each element of the charge being brought against you. They have to prove each element beyond a reasonable doubt. You have the right in this matter to confront any witnesses that are brought against you. You can see, hear, or question them in the courtroom. You have the right to call your own witnesses or present evidence that you believe would further defense to the charge. Do you have any questions about your trial rights so far?
No, ma'am.
You have the right to remain silent at trial and not have silence be used against you. You're currently scheduled for probable cause conference. It's going to be May 12, 2023 at 9 o'clock in the morning before me, Judge Kristen Simmons. That'll be held via Zoom, or you can appear in person. You have a preliminary examination in person at the court that's scheduled May 19th at 9 o'clock in the morning in my courtroom. Did you get a copy of the notice to appear and the Zoom instructions?
Nothing yet, ma'am.
Okay, I think that's because yours is sitting in this file right here, because I was wondering why there was Zoom instructions. Okay, we'll make sure you get that, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's see. Are you currently on probation, parole, or on bond?
No, ma'am.
And is your address this address on 8th Street?
Yes, ma'am. My niece's house.
Does the alleged victim reside there as well?
No, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Are you employed?
No, ma'am. Retired, disabled.
What's your phone number?
Area code 517-894-7818.
Counsel, you can make your bond motion.
Thank you. Mr. Spataro lives in the Lansing area. Currently, he has a motel room that's temporary in Holt area, but he didn't use that as his address because it's temporary and he's only paid until this coming up Friday. Other than that, he is either homeless, but also can stay with his niece as mentioned in Lansing. And he represents that he has nowhere else to go besides his niece and his temporary housing and the mid-Michigan area. So I'd present that he's not a flight risk, just not having anywhere to go. He reported having health concerns, diabetes, and he had a stroke that causes him to receive disability and have to worry about his health. He reported having no prior convictions in the past, and therefore also having no failure to appears on maybe a case that was dismissed in the past. And he understands, we spoke about the no contact order. He understands that he is not to have any type of contact or third party contact with the complaining witness here. He informed me that is not a problem and he plans to abide by all court rules and instructions. Given his lack of criminal history and his community ties, we would ask for a PR bond. Thank you.
Thank you. The bond will be set in the amount of $500 personal recognizance. There is a no contact order that will be in place for the protection of the alleged victim, Linda Marie. You're not to have contact directly or indirectly with Linda Marie. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you're not to be within 1,500 feet of wherever Linda Marie is, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
You need to make sure you appear for all of your future court dates. You're not to travel outside the state without prior approval of the court. You're not to use, purchase, or possess alcohol or drugs without a valid prescription. You're not to possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon. You need to report to pretrial services within 48 hours of your release, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any questions for the court at this time?
All that information will be on that piece of paper that I'm gonna receive.
We'll make sure you get the information about your bond conditions and you'll get your notice to appear as well as your Zoom instruction sheet, which is in the file, and then the contact information for pretrial services. Okay, sir?
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
No problem. Any additional matters for the record, counsel?
No, thank you.
Okay, you're all set, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Jeffrey Allen Cobb, file number 23-01342. Council appearance, please.
Good morning, Brian Jackson on behalf of Mr. Cobb, who is present in custody for an arraignment.
Okay, Mr. Cobb, today's the date we're addressing, believe an arraignment for a PA 53 violation. That is a bond violation. It looks like you were arraigned by Magistrate Milmore yesterday on the underlying offense. There's a notation here of an allegation that you violated the bonds of your condition by making or violating the no contact order and calling the alleged victim. Okay, so were you clear as to the no contact order, sir?
Yeah, I didn't really know that it meant like, I thought it was like after I leave. I was just trying to get money brought up for my bond.
Okay, so let me advise you of the PA 53 violation. That's a bond violation, and so it's a contempt of order is what you're facing. Of contempt of court order is what you're facing, and you have the right to have a contested hearing on that. Okay, and you have the right to be represented by counsel at that contested hearing. You have the right to have the prosecution bring evidence to support the allegation of the violation. If you're found to be in violation of your bond conditions, you can be facing a maximum penalty of 93 days in jail and or $7,500 in fines, or your bond can be revoked. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there was originally a bond in this matter set at 2,500, 10%. There's a no contact order. The no contact order states that you are not to have contact directly or indirectly with the Kiana Santana Cobb. So that means you can't make any phone calls to her. You can't speak to her in person. You can't send her a text message. You can't slide in her DMs. You can't have anybody else do that on your behalf either. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am. I fully
Can't
understand
write
that.
her a note. There's no communication at all under this court order. You recognize that, sir?
Yes, okay.
Okay, okay. For the purposes of his arraignment for the violation, is he pleading not guilty?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, the court will enter a not guilty plea on your behalf. I reiterated the terms and conditions of your bond. Bond is going to continue at this time at 2,500, 10%, and you'll get a notice in the mail for a hearing for the alleged bond violation. I'll have it set for the same date as your pretrial, which is going to be May 8th, okay?
Okay.
Do you
Yes.
have any questions?
No,
Any additional matters for the record, counsel?
Just that case number again, Your Honor.
That is file number 23-01342.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You're all set.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Thank you in the jail.
Yes, ma'am. Have a good day.
I think we have one more.
No, MSP never sent me the file, the affidavit, so they'll be arraigned tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Judge, are you gonna bring the files down with you, or you want me to come up and get them?
I can bring them down.
Thank you, ma'am.